Nam Yuna had not slept for 3 days straight. Her eyes were red and tired, but she could not stop working. The intelligence files she had stolen from the council database were full of secrets that made her stomach feel sick. Every page she read revealed another horrible truth about the organization that humans had trusted. Director Nam, as her team called her, had built the best spy network in human history. Her agents were everywhere, from the council stations to the alien trade posts. They looked like normal diplomats and merchants, but they were really gathering information that could save humanity. The breakthrough came when Agent Ko Min successfully hacked into the council's most secret computer system. What he found there was so terrible that he had to sit down and take deep breaths before he could report it to Director Nam. Director, you need to see this, Ko Min said, his voice shaking as he sent the files to her computer. The council has detailed plans for something called Resource Extraction Protocol 7, and Earth is the main target. Director Nam opened the files and felt her blood turn to ice. The documents showed that the Galactic Council was not a peaceful alliance at all. It was a massive criminal organization that had been operating for thousands of years. Their method was always the same. First, they would find a species that was just starting to explore space. Then they would make contact and offer friendship and technology. The species would be so excited about joining the galactic community that they would agree to any terms, even unfair ones, once the species became dependent on council technology and moved their people to vulnerable colonies. The trap would spring. Species that were useful as workers would be enslaved. Those with valuable knowledge would have their technology stolen before being eliminated. The lucky ones would become permanent servants. Director Nam called an emergency meeting with Admiral Lee and all of Earth's top leaders. The meeting was held in the most secure room on Earth, deep underground, where no alien sensors could detect them. The news she shared was worse than anyone had imagined. Earth has been marked for complete resource extraction, she announced. Every human will be relocated to work camps while our planet is strip-mined for its valuable minerals. The operation is scheduled to begin in 6 months. President Park Ji, who had been elected after the previous president died in an accident, sat in shocked silence. How many people are we talking about? According to these documents, they plan to enslave our entire population of 8 billion people. Director Nam replied, but that is not the worst part. They are planning similar operations against 47 other species at the same time. This is going to be the biggest genocide in galactic history. Dar Song, he had been studying the council's historical records, while Director Nam was uncovering their future plans. Song, he was learning about their past crimes. What she found explained why the galaxy was so quiet and empty compared to what it should be. Council has been doing this for 10,000 years, Song, he reported to the group. In that time they have eliminated over 3,000 different species. They have destroyed entire civilizations and erased them from history. The galaxy should be full of different races, but instead, it is controlled by just 5 ancient species. Engineer Choi Day made the most disturbing discovery. Of all the technology that the council had given to humans was not just inferior, it was designed to spy on them and make them weak. Every faster-than-light communicator contained hidden programs that mapped human defenses. Every medical scanner sent information back to council databases. They know exactly where every human ship is located. Choi Day explained to the group. They know the position of every space station, every planetary defense system, every military base. We have no secrets from them. The trap was perfect. Humanity had walked willingly into a cage, thinking they were joining a community of friends. Instead, they had given their enemies a complete map of everything they needed to destroy human civilization. But Director Nam had one more piece of information that changed everything. The council files also contained communication records between the 5 ruling species. These records showed that the council members were not united. They were actually competing with each other for the best slaves and the most valuable resources. The Valari want to keep humans as personal servants because they think we are attractive and entertaining, she explained. The Chitauri want to use us for dangerous construction work in space. The Neorians want to use our brains for scientific experiments. The other 2 species want to eliminate us completely because they think we are too dangerous. This competition between council members was the first weakness that humans had discovered. If they could find a way to exploit it, they might have a chance to survive. Admiral Lee Hyun studied all the information and began to form a plan. The council expected humans to be weak and divided like all the other species they had destroyed, but humans had spent centuries fighting wars and learning military strategy. They knew how to fight against impossible odds. We are not going to wait for them to attack us, Admiral Lee announced. We are going to strike first and strike hard. But we cannot do this alone. We need allies. Director Nam smiled for the first time in days. I have been in contact with resistance groups from 12 different species that are marked for elimination. They are all waiting for someone to lead them. In a rebellion against the council, the plan that emerged from these meetings was bold and dangerous. Instead of trying to defend Earth and the human colonies, they would launch coordinated attacks on council facilities throughout the galaxy. The goal was not just to survive, but to completely destroy the council and free all the enslaved species. Engineer Choi Day had been secretly working on weapons and ships that were better than anything the council possessed. Human creativity and engineering skill combined with stolen council technology had produced machines of war that could surprise their enemies. Captain Yoon SEO volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission of all. She would take a small fleet of ships and attack the Council's main command center while the rest of the human forces hit targets throughout the galaxy. It is a suicide mission, Admiral Lee warned her. The command center is protected by hundreds of warships. Captain Yoon smiled grimly. Then we better make sure our sacrifice counts for something. The final preparations took 2 months. During this time, human agents throughout the galaxy made contact with resistance fighters from dozens of species. The message was simple: join us or die alone. When the day of the attack finally came, Admiral Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Righteous Anger, and looked out at the largest human fleet ever assembled. 500 ships filled with angry humans who had learned the truth about their supposed allies. The time for peaceful diplomacy was over. The time for war had begun. Captain Lee Hyan woke up early that morning and looked out the small window of his sleeping room. The stars were shining bright against the dark space, and Earth was just a tiny blue dot far behind them. He had been waiting for this day for 20 years, ever since he was a young boy dreaming of flying among the stars. The ship New Dawn was moving through space toward the biggest space station anyone had ever seen. The Galactic Council station was so huge that it looked like a small moon floating. In the darkness, it had tall crystal towers that sparkled like diamonds, and hundreds of ships from different worlds were flying around it like busy insects around a flower. Lee Hyan put on his best uniform and walked to the control room of the ship. His crew of 30 people were already working at their stations, checking everything twice and 3 times. They all knew this was the most important day in human history, the day when Earth would finally meet other smart beings from across the galaxy. Dr. Park Mina was sitting at her computer screen reading through pages and pages of translation rules. She had long black hair that she kept pushing behind her ears when she was nervous. Her job was to make sure humans could talk to the aliens without making any mistakes that might cause problems. Captain, the translation computers are working perfectly, she said without looking up from her screen. We can understand their language and they can understand ours. The computer changes their sounds into words we know. Lee Hyun nodded and looked at the growing space station through the big front window. It was getting bigger every minute, and he could see more details. Now there were gardens floating in glass bubbles and water flowing in streams that curved around the outside of the buildings. It looked like something from a dream. Ambassador Kim Tae walked into the control room wearing his finest clothes. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes who had spent his whole life learning about different cultures on Earth. Now he would use that knowledge to make friends with beings from other worlds. Are we ready, Ambassador? Kim asked, his voice calm, but Lee Hyun could see excitement in his eyes. We are ready, sir, Lee Hyun replied. The crew has checked everything and all systems are working perfectly. The space station was so close now that it filled the entire window. Ships were flying in and out of hundreds of docking areas. Some ships looked like long needles made of silver metal, others were round like bowls with wings sticking out in all directions. One ship looked like it was made entirely of glass, and light was flowing through it like liquid. A's voice came through the communication system, speaking in musical tones that the computer quickly changed into human words. Welcome, ship from Earth. You are cleared to dock at platform 732. Please follow the guide lights. Lee Hyan felt his heart beating fast as he steered the New Dawn toward the docking platform. The guide lights were bright blue and they formed a path through the busy traffic around the station. Other ships moved out of their way and Lee Hyun could see alien faces looking at them through windows. He wondered what they were thinking about humans. The docking went smoothly and Lee Hyan felt the ship connect to the station with a soft bump. The air systems connected and fresh air flowed into the ship. It smelled different from Earth air. It was cleaner somehow and had a sweet taste, like flowers. Ambassador Kim was the first person to step out of the ship and onto the station. The floor was made of some kind of crystal that felt warm under their feet. The walls were covered in patterns that seemed to move and change colors as they watched. 3 different types of aliens were waiting to welcome them. The first group were tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. They moved like dancers and their faces were kind and peaceful. These were the Valari, and they had been the first aliens to contact Earth 50 years ago. The second group looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. They had big eyes and mouth parts that clicked and snapped when they talked. These were the Chitauri, and they were known throughout the galaxy as master builders who could construct anything. The third group were the strangest of all. They looked like jellyfish floating in the air with no legs or arms. Their bodies were transparent and filled with colors that changed as they talked. They were the Neorians, and they were supposed to be very wise. Welcome, humans of Earth, said the tallest Valari. His voice was deep and musical. We have been waiting for this moment for many years. I am Council Member Vex Tar, and these are my colleagues. We are honored to meet you. Ambassador Kim bowed, the way he had practiced thousands of times. We are grateful for this welcome and honored to be here. We bring greetings from all the people of Earth and hope for friendship between our worlds. The aliens led them through corridors that were like walking inside a rainbow. The walls showed pictures of different worlds and the ceiling looked like open sky with clouds moving across it. They passed gardens with plants that glowed in the dark and fountains that shot water up in impossible spiral patterns. The council chamber was the biggest room any human had ever seen. It was shaped like a huge bowl with seats going up in circles all around. Representatives from hundreds of different alien species were sitting in the seats. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Li Hian could not figure out which end was their head at. The very center of the chamber were 5 special seats for the High Council. These were the oldest and most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They had started the Galactic Council 10,000 years ago and had been keeping peace among the stars ever since. High Councilor Vextar stood up and his voice echoed through the huge chamber. We welcome the humans of Earth to our council. You have shown that your species can learn and grow. You have stopped fighting wars on your home world and you have begun to explore space peacefully. Ambassador Kim felt proud as he listened. The High Councilor was right. Humans had finally learned to work together and had stopped the terrible wars that had hurt Earth for so long. Now they were ready to join the peaceful community of the galaxy. However, the High Councilor continued, there are rules that all new members must follow. You will have the status of probationary members for 50 of your Earth years. During this time you may trade with other species and build colonies on worlds we approve, but you cannot vote on council decisions and you must obey all our laws without question. Li Hain felt a little worried about these rules, but Ambassador Kim had explained that this was normal for new species. The galaxy was a big and complicated place, and humans needed time to learn how things worked. The ceremony continued for hours with speeches from different alien leaders and presentations about the benefits of council membership. Humans would get access to amazing technology that could cure diseases, heal the environment, and let them travel to distant stars. They would be able to trade with hundreds of different worlds and learn from civilizations that were millions of years old. When the ceremony ended, the aliens showed them to guest rooms that were more beautiful than any palace on Earth. The beds were soft as clouds, and the windows showed views of space that took their breath away. That night, as Li Huyan lay in his amazing bed looking out at the stars, he felt hopeful for the first time in years. Earth had been struggling with pollution, hunger, and disease for so long, but now with the help of their new alien friends, all those problems could be solved. He did not know that this peaceful beginning was just the first part of a terrible trap. He did not know that the Galactic Council was not what it seemed to be, and he could not imagine that one day he would have to fight the greatest war in galactic history to save not just humanity but all the innocent species of the galaxy. For now, though, everything seemed perfect and the future looked bright with endless possibilities among the stars. 3 years had passed since that exciting day when humans first met the Galactic Council. Captain Li Hyun was now Admiral Li Hyun, and he commanded a small but growing fleet of human ships. Earth had changed a lot during these 3 years. New cities were built with alien technology, and diseases that had killed millions of people were now easy to cure. Engineer Choi Day worked day and night in his laboratory trying to understand how alien machines worked. He was a thin man with thick glasses who loved solving puzzles more than anything else in the world. The alien technology was like the biggest puzzle he had ever seen. Every machine had secrets hidden inside it. We are learning so much, Choi Day told his team of scientists as they gathered around an alien food maker. This machine can create any kind of food we want just by mixing basic chemicals together. If we can understand how it works, we could end hunger on Earth forever. But there was a problem. The aliens would only trade their old and simple machines to humans. Their really good technology was kept secret from probationary members. When human scientists asked questions about how the advanced machines worked, the aliens would smile and say that humans were not ready for such knowledge yet. Dia Song, he was Earth's new chief diplomat. She had replaced Ambassador Kim Tae, who had gotten sick and had to return to Earth. Song, he was a smart woman who noticed things that other people missed. She spent her days reading trade agreements and council laws. Something is not right, she told Admiral Li Hyun during one of their private meetings. Look at these trade numbers. We give the aliens tons of rare metals from Earth, and in return they give us machines that barely work. The other council members get much better deals. Admiral Li Hyun studied the papers Song he had brought. The numbers were shocking. Humans were trading away valuable resources for almost nothing, while other alien species got amazing technology for much less. Why are they treating us this way? Admiral Li asked Song. He shook her head. I have been studying the council records. The last 12 species that joined the council all got the same bad treatment. None of them ever became full members even after hundreds of years. This news worried Admiral Li Hyun. What happened to those 12 species? He asked. That is the strangest part, Song, he replied. 7 of them just disappeared. Their home worlds are marked as empty in the current star maps. The other 5 still exist, but they work as servants for the council members. They mine minerals and build things, but they have no freedom. Meanwhile, strange things were happening in human space. Captain Yoon Seo was commanding an exploration ship called the Bright Future when her engines suddenly stopped working near a council monitoring station. The station sent repair ships to help, but the human engineers noticed that the alien repairs made their ships slower than before. This is the 3rd time this month that our ships have had problems near council stations, Captain Yoon reported to Admiral Li Hyun. It is like their monitoring equipment is somehow damaging our ships, and the colony world of New Busan colonists started getting sick with a mysterious illness. Council medical teams came to help, but their treatments did not work. The sickness made people weak and tired, but it never got better or worse. It just stayed the same, keeping the colonists from working at full strength. Dr. Park Mina had moved to New Busan to study the local plant life. She was one of the first people to get sick with the mysterious illness. When she examined her own blood under a microscope, she found something terrifying. "There are tiny machines in my blood," she told the other colonists through a video call to Earth. "They are so small I can barely see them, but they are definitely artificial. Someone put them there on purpose." The news from New Busan spread quickly through human space. Other colonies reported similar problems, people getting sick with the same mysterious illness that made them weak but never killed them. It was like someone wanted to keep humans alive but not healthy enough to be strong. Admiral Lee called an emergency meeting with all of Earth's top leaders. The evidence was piling up and it all pointed to one terrible conclusion. The Galactic Council was not the peaceful organization it claimed to be. Captain Yoon, SEO, made the discovery that changed everything. She was exploring the outer edge of human space when her senses detected something hidden behind a cloud of space dust. It was the wreckage of a huge space battleships from at least 3 different species had fought and died. "Their admiral, the damage on these ships was made by Council weapons," Captain Yoon reported. But according to official records, the Council has not fought any wars for over 1,000 years. These ships are old, but not that old, maybe 50 years at most. Admiral Lee Haeon felt his blood turn cold as he studied the pictures Captain Yoon had sent. The destroyed ships were from species he had never heard of, species that did not appear in any current Council records. "Send teams to search every piece of wreckage," Admiral Lee ordered. "We need to know who these species were and what happened to them." What the search teams found was even more shocking. The destroyed ships contained records and databases that told the story of 3 different species that had joined the Council as probationary members just like humans. They had been promised friendship and technology, but instead they had been betrayed and attacked. One of the species had been called the Zentari. They were peaceful traders who loved art and music. Their records showed that they had tried to leave the Council when they discovered the truth about the organization. The Council had responded by destroying their entire civilization. Another species were the Corvin. They were master engineers who had built some of the most beautiful cities in the galaxy. Their crime had been asking too many questions about Council technology. The Council had decided they were a threat and had eliminated them. The third species had no name in their records. They had been so completely destroyed that even their identity had been erased from history. All that remained were fragments of their ships and a few broken data files. Admiral Lee Haeon stared at the evidence spread across his desk. The pattern was clear. The Galactic Council found promising species, offered them membership, and then destroyed or enslaved them once they became dependent on Council resources. Dr. Song, he had been working with Nam Yuna, a brilliant intelligence analyst, to uncover more evidence. What they found confirmed their worst fears. The Council had detailed files on dozens of species, including humans. Every species was classified by their usefulness and their threat level. Humans had been marked as useful for labor and dangerous for their curiosity. The files recommended that humanity should be kept weak through controlled sickness and equipment failures until the Council was ready to make their final move. "We are not the first species to discover this truth," Nam Yuna told Admiral Lee Haeon. "The records show that at least 20 other species tried to rebel against Council over the past 1,000 years. All of them failed because they acted alone." Admiral Lee Haeon realized that time was running out. The Council would not wait forever. Eventually they would decide that humans had learned too much and it would be time to spring their trap. But this time things would be different because humans had one advantage that none of the other species had possessed. They were absolutely furious, and they were not going to go quietly into the darkness. Admiral Lee Haeon stood in the command center of his flagship Righteous Anger and watched as hundreds of human warships prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. The bridge was filled with the quiet tension that comes before a storm. When everyone knows that many brave people will not live to see another day. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every innocent species in this galaxy. He announced to his crew through the ship's communication system. "The Council thinks we are weak because we are new to space. They are about to learn that humans do not go quietly into the darkness." Engineer Choi Dae had worked miracles in the months leading up to this battle. The weapons on human ships now fired energy beams that we could cut through Council armor like paper. The shields could absorb attacks that would destroy other ships. The engines were so fast that human vessels could appear and disappear before the enemy could react. Captain Park Seo commanded the attack fleet heading toward the Council's main staging area, where thousands of alien warships were preparing to attack human colonies. Her ship Lightning Strike led 50 of the fastest human vessels in a desperate race against time. "We have to destroy their ships before they can scatter." Park Seo told her pilots. "If even one Council fleet escapes to attack our colonies, millions of innocent people will die." At the same time, Captain Lee One was leading another attack force toward the Council's primary shipyard. This massive facility built most of the warships that kept the galaxy under Council control. Destroying it would cripple their ability to replace losses. The shipyard was protected by energy shields and hundreds of defense platforms, but human engineers had found a weakness. The shields had to be lowered for just a few seconds every hour to let supply ships enter. During that brief moment, the facility would be vulnerable. "We get one chance at this," Lee Wan reminded his attack squadron. "If we miss our timing, we will all be dead, and the mission will fail." But the most important part of the battle was happening in deep space, where Dr. Song, he was leading the diplomatic offensive using the galaxy's communication networks. She was broadcasting messages to every species that the Council had marked for elimination. The message was simple and direct: "We know what the Council is planning. Join us now or face extinction alone." The response was overwhelming. 47 different species committed their fleets to the rebellion, species that had been enemies for centuries. Put aside their differences to fight against the Council. The galaxy erupted in coordinated attacks as hundreds of years of hidden anger finally exploded into open war. The Corvan, who had been enslaved for 50 years, broke their chains and attacked their Council overseers. The Centauri survivors, who had been hiding in the Outer Rim, emerged with ships built from salvaged wreckage. The humans had given them hope, and now they were fighting for freedom. Captain Unesio led the most dangerous mission of all. Her task was to attack the Council's central command station, which controlled all their military operations. The station was protected by more firepower than had ever been assembled in one place, but it had to be destroyed or the rebellion would fail her. Ship Bright Future approached the command station along with 20 other human vessels. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but they had surprise. On their side, the Council had never imagined that humans would be bold enough to attack their most important facility. Battle began at exactly the same moment. Throughout the galaxy, human ships appeared from hyperspace and opened fire on Council positions. The aliens were caught completely off guard. Many of their ships were destroyed before they could even raise their shields. Captain Park Soul's attack on the staging area was brutal and swift. Human fighters swarmed through the Council fleet like angry wasps. Their weapons tore through alien hulls, and their speed made them almost impossible to hit. Within an hour, half of the Council's reserve fleet was floating wreckage. Captain Lee Wan's assault on the shipyard was even more spectacular. His ships arrived just as the shields lowered to admit a supply convoy. The human vessels followed the supply ships through the gap and began destroying everything they could find. Factories that had built warships for 1,000 years exploded. In brilliant flashes of light, construction facilities that stretched for miles were reduced to twisted metal. The shipyard that had seemed invincible was burning from end to end, but the real masterpiece was the work of Commander Zhang Yu, who led a boarding party that captured the Council's communication center. This facility controlled all messages between Council forces. Once it was in human hands, the aliens could no longer coordinate their defenses. Lieutenant Kim So piloted her fighter through impossible odds to reach the station's main reactor. Her ship was damaged and leaking air, but she kept flying straight toward her target. She knew that destroying the reactor would take out the entire facility, and she was willing to die to complete the mission. At the last second, she ejected from her fighter and watched as it crashed into the reactor. The explosion lit up space for millions of kilometers and sent a message to every species in the galaxy. The age of the Council was ending. The battles raged for weeks as human forces and their alien allies fought. Council fleets throughout the galaxy. The Council had superior numbers and better established positions, but the rebels fought with the fury of the desperate and the strengths of the righteous. Human tactical innovations proved devastatingly effective. Fast attack squadrons would appear from hyperspace, hit their targets, and disappear before the enemy could respond. Boarding parties would capture Council ships and turn their weapons against their former masters. Captain Yoon SEO's attack on the command station succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Half of her ships were destroyed in the assault, and she was badly wounded when her bridge was hit by enemy fire. But the station fell, and with it the Council's ability to control their scattered forces. The turning point came when the 5 ruling species began to panic and started fighting each other instead of working together. The Valari accused the Ch of sabotaging the war effort. The Neorians tried to make a separate peace with the humans. The ancient alliance that had controlled the galaxy for 10,000 years fell apart in a matter of days. Admiral Lee Hyen received the surrender of the last Council fleet commander exactly 18 months after the war began. The alien leader was a proud Valari who had commanded hundreds of battles but had never faced an enemy like humanity. "To have destroyed everything we built," he said to Admiral Lee Hyen. 10,000 years of galactic civilization lies in ruins. Admiral Lee Hyen looked at the defeated alien commander with eyes that showed no mercy. "Your civilization was built on the bones of innocent species. The galaxy is better off without." If the war was over and humanity had won, but the real work was just beginning. Now they had to build something better than what they had destroyed. 5 years had passed since the Great War ended, and the galaxy was a completely different place. Admiral Lee Hyen now held the title of Supreme Commander of the Galactic Liberation Forces, but he preferred to be called simply Admiral Lee. The war had aged him, and his hair was now gray, but his eyes still burned with the same determination that had led humanity to victory. The old council chamber had been completely rebuilt and now served as the meeting place for the new Galactic Federation. Representatives from over 400 different species gathered here to make decisions that affected trillions of beings across the galaxy. The chamber was no longer arranged in circles that showed who was more important than others. Every species had an equal voice. "We gathered today to celebrate the 5th anniversary of liberation," Admiral Lee announced to the assembled delegates. The age of tyranny is over and the age of freedom has begun. The transformation had not been easy. Many species had been so damaged by centuries of council rule that they barely remembered how to govern themselves. Some had been slaves for so long that they did not know how to make their own decisions. Others had been isolated for generations and were afraid to trust anyone. Da Song had become the Federation's first Secretary of Interspecies Relations. Her job was to help damaged civilizations rebuild themselves and learn to participate in the democratic process. She traveled from world to world teaching former slaves how to vote and helping isolated species learn to communicate with others. The most important thing we learned from the Council's crimes is that diversity makes us stronger, she often told new Federation members. Every species has something unique to contribute and no one should be forced to live under the rule of others. Engineer Choi Dae was now the Federation's technology coordinator and he had revolutionized how scientific knowledge was shared. Instead of keeping secrets like the Council had done, the Federation made all new discoveries available to every member species. A cure for cancer developed by the Zentari was freely given to humans. A new type of faster-than-light engine invented by humans was shared with everyone. This is how progress should work, Choi Dae explained to his team of scientists from dozens of different species. When we share knowledge freely, everyone benefits and the whole galaxy moves forward together. The Federation's constitution was simple but revolutionary. No species could be forced to join. Membership was completely voluntary. All members had equal voting rights, regardless of how old their civilization was or how much technology they possessed. Most importantly, any attempt by one species to dominate another would result in immediate military action by the Federation Defense Force. Captain Yoon Seo had survived her injuries from the war and now commanded the defense force. Her job was to protect weak species from bullies and to make sure that no one could ever again build an empire like the Council. She led a fleet of ships crewed by volunteers from every member species, united in their determination to keep the galaxy free. We are not conquerors or rulers, she told new recruits. We are guardians. Our job is to protect those who cannot protect themselves and to ensure that freedom survives. The Federation capital was established on Earth, not because humans demanded it, but because other species recognized that humanity had shown them the path to freedom. President Park Ji had been elected as the first Federation Chancellor, and she worked tirelessly to serve all species with equal dedication. Earth became a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. The blue and green world that had produced the species brave enough to challenge the Council was now home to beings from hundreds of different worlds. The sight of alien children playing with human children in Earth's parks showed that the dream of galactic unity was becoming reality. But perhaps the most important change was in how people thought about power. The Council had ruled through fear and intimidation, making others obey through threats and violence. The Federation ruled through consent and cooperation, earning loyalty through service and fairness. Now, Yuna, who had once been Earth's top spy, was now the Federation's director of historical research. Her job was to find lost civilizations and help them rebuild. We discovered the ruins of over 60 different species that the Council had destroyed and was working to preserve their memory. We must never forget what happened here, she said while standing in the ruins of a Zentari city. The Council tried to erase these people from history, but we will make sure they are remembered. Their sacrifice helped make our freedom possible. The galaxy was healing, but the scars of 10,000 years of oppression would take generations to fade completely. Some species had been so traumatized by Council rule that they were afraid to leave their home systems. Others had been so thoroughly conquered that they had forgotten their own cultures and languages. But slowly, steadily, the Federation was growing stronger. New species joined every year, drawn by the promise of freedom and equality. Trade flourished between worlds that had once been enemies. Scientific discoveries accelerated as minds from different civilizations worked together. Art and music from hundreds of cultures spread throughout the galaxy, creating a renaissance of creativity. Admiral Lee often stood at the window of his office looking out at the stars and thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy that had once been ruled by 5 ancient species obsessed with power was now guided by hundreds of young civilizations dedicated to cooperation. The Council had made one fatal mistake when they threatened humanity. They had assumed that humans would be like all the other species. They had destroyed weak, isolated, and easy to defeat. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that refused to accept injustice. Human fury, once unleashed, had indeed reshaped the very foundations of galactic civilization, but it was not fury alone that had won the war. It was the human belief that all intelligent beings deserved freedom and dignity. That belief had spread like fire through the galaxy, inspiring others to stand up and fight. The age of peace through tyranny was truly over. The age of peace through justice had begun, and it would endure as long as there were beings willing to stand up for what was right. The galaxy was finally free, and Admiral Lee knew that his people had found their true purpose among the stars. They were not meant to be conquerors or rulers. They were meant to be liberators who lit the torch of freedom for others to follow, and that torch would burn brightly across the galaxy for all time.